Welcome to Security with Spirits, an Oak Barrel security podcast. I'm Jason.
This is Ben.
Jonathan.
And Tony. We'll tell you what to drink while we tell you why we drink.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the podcast. Just want to wish everybody a very happy 4th of July.
Happy 4th of July, everyone.
Happy 4th.
Happy 4th of July.
Tonight, I have a Macallan 15 in front of me. It's just on ice, nothing fancy, but that's what I'm drinking. Ben, what you drinking?
So I have reached a point where finding the remaining classic malts has become a little bit more difficult. But I anticipated this, and I prepared some homemade limoncello inspired by one of our past episodes, cocktails. Life gives you lemons.
Yes.
Nice.
The Oak Barrel, when life hands you lemons, limoncello is something I wanted to try. And I made it, and it is delicious, and it makes a lot. And so I'll have a lot of it to drink over the next few weeks.
I was going to say, that's a good summer drink anyways, right?
Yeah. It's excellent. Jonathan, what are you drinking?
I've got a glass of Tullamore Dew on the rocks. I'm on to my second or third glass. It's just very smooth. So, Tony, what do you got for us tonight?
Our signature cocktail for this episode is the Oak Barrel Smoke Show. I've really been enjoying the formula of rum plus herb plus citrus. So this time I'm using rosemary and grapefruit. But the real trick to this cocktail is the smoke show technique, which involves torching rosemary in a grapefruit grenade. See it in action on our site, oakbarrelsecurity.com, and on our Instagram page. And if you've got a fancy cocktail technique you think we should try, tell us about it. Leave us a voicemail at 234-201-0707.
Awesome.
You had it, grapefruit grenades.
Well, fellas, I've got a confession. I'm not drinking Macallan. It has been a long night at work, and I just got finished making dinner, and I had a Miller Lite with dinner, so I'm drinking a Miller Lite. So I hope you can forgive me for lying, but that leads into this episode. So we're going to talk about lying on resumes. So I got a Zima. I found it in the back of the fridge.
Oh.
Are they making those again? I heard that they're making Zimas again.
It came back for a while and kind of fizzled. Yeah.
It was like the seltzer waters and stuff, but it had a nice healthy dose of sugar in there, so
like smeared
gets
off
it
ice.
really good and hungover.
But to add to it, we would put a Jolly Rancher and let it melt inside. Did you all do that?
I am so glad you said that. Yes, we were a big fan of dropping candy, and yeah.
Okay, because it wasn't.
I'm not with vodka, but I never did that with Zima. But.
Anyways, on to the so as we go down the nostalgic road of alcoholism. So lying on resume, I heard it actually I heard it in another podcast. They just skimmed over it a couple seconds maybe, and then it's proof that my phone's listening to me, because all of a sudden I had all sorts of stuff about other people in the cybersecurity industry lying on the resume, and I was like, we should really cover this, because if this is a thing, like, how do you get I guess first we kind of got to define what lying is on a resume. So if somebody embellishes a little bit, I don't consider that lying, but like, what would be like Jonathan, what would be like a lie on a resume? What's an example?
So I guess the first one that kind of comes to mind is just blatantly lying about technical skills. Knowing that you put down, we'll say, a particular program language and you've never laid eyes on it. To me, that would kind of be a lie, especially if somebody's looking for somebody that can program in that particular language.
Yeah.
Ben?
To add on to that, if you were not only lying about that you knew something, but you had no coding experience at all.
Ooh.
skills that we talk about can be backed up with verifiable evidence. I think at a point, like if you were trained in language, say C++ and BASIC, and maybe you've written some queries and something else, I feel like learning another coding language, why not just say, I have coding background and I'm quick to pick up new languages. Why would you have to say, I know that language, I've written a ton of items in that. That level of dishonesty is very telling, I think.
So a lie is anything you can't bluff your way out of.
Bluff your way out of. That's
right. Like I can put like
yeah.
some. I can put that I have scripting skills on my resume, whatever, which is mostly true. Because like if I Google, I can put together some scripts, whatever. I couldn't show up at an interview and write a Python script, by hand with no
swordfish style.
Right. That's distracting. Anyways.
But
I
see what you mean.
I could still put that on a resume. Like I could, if you expected me to do it and I showed up on the job, I could still do it. I would just need a little help, a little Googling, which is pretty fair for anything we do in IT.
Well, engineers have engineering manuals that have a lot of this stuff that, like, the equation and things like that they need. It's like, if they expect you to be memorizing it.
Yeah, I don't expect anybody to have, like, a big fountain of knowledge. I mean, my general practitioner doctor, like, he'll occasionally be like, let me Google this. And I'm okay with that. I got some weird stuff going on. So I'm just kidding.
Again, with the lies.
So yeah, I and that was put very well. I think if you don't have a foundation of knowledge to at least back up and at least talk somewhat intelligently about it, that's you're entering lying territory.
Yeah, like I would say that I think it's a pretty good example of, like, if they asked you, have you ever, say, implemented a disaster recovery plan? And if one of your previous jobs, you thought about, hey, what happens if this breaks? Well, we need to have a backup, and you implemented a backup, and you said, okay, we do regular backups, and if this breaks, then I do this. Well, that's a disaster recovery plan. Now, if they get granular with it and they start asking about specific, like, how did you figure out your RPO and RTO and all that? Well, then you'd have to have that knowledge base to be able to back it up to say, well, it's one server, so my RTO is this, and if that makes sense. Like, you have to have that background, right?
And I think there are some examples online of people going way beyond, and people putting, like, they're falsifying certifications or even degrees, or they're saying that they have work experience that they never had, or maybe the place doesn't exist, or like, there are some pretty extreme examples. And this is I know it's rough in every position, but we're talking about cybersecurity professionals here, and this is somebody that you need to have some trust in. So it would be really difficult for me, like, let's say that they got past the interview. They're really good at interviewing. Who knows? They got past HR, they got past the interview process, and they got on the team. And then you start to find out maybe they don't have this degree, certification, experience, whatever. What would you do? Like, what's your approach there?
Oh yeah, that's tough. Ideally, you would find that out hopefully within whatever introductory period you have.
I mean, you would think that HR's vetted the stuff, but I have had
Come
cases
on.
where but I've had cases where people were like, oh yeah, I've absolutely got the CISSP, or whatever certification, CISM, CISA, whatever. And then you get to talking about it, and maybe you find out they're like, oh, maybe you don't.
I mean, is HR contacting universities to get, like, transcripts and stuff to verify diplomas?
Most of the places I've interviewed, yeah, they do. They
Really? Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, there's clearinghouses that can subscribe that can pull all that information. I would say that I do think there's a lot of policies or hiring policies where it will state anything that you falsified on this is a reason for dismissal.
Yeah.
All right. For a change, I got to play the contrarian on this. In part because down my family tree, I've got someone who pretty much lied their way into a job, because this was a time when you had to have at minimum a high school diploma. She didn't, but lied and got the job and basically changed generations of my family by doing so. So I have a different perspective on this.
Like
Also,
turning you all into criminals, or
yes. So maybe some of those hiring requirements are due to be reconsidered. Also, if somebody can lie on their resume and get the job and perform, more power to them. I mean, that's just good social engineering, isn't it?
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
But I mean, trust is a big part of it. I guess you have those 90 days to really chip away at them and see what kind of trust you can establish with them.
And that's true of any hire, right? Whether
Right.
they lied on their resume or not, you don't know until they're in the role anyway.
True.
And that brings up a point too. Like, and probably every one of us has family that might have lied about their age to join the armed services.
Yeah.
And some of these ceilings to people is kind of you got to reevaluate that. Like, let's say saying that you have to have a high school diploma was a big thing, and so they came out with this GED program. And now it's like high school diploma or GED equivalent or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so all they're measuring by that high school diploma is that, okay, you've had basic school. They don't care if you graduated with all C's, right? Whatever. It was just a matter of hoping for a certain level of aptitude. So, in a sense, if you could read, write, and do basic math, that should be what's on the on the hiring requirements, not necessarily that requirement. And that's something that, when it comes into these ideas, like you have to have a bachelor's degree. Well, it's like they don't care if you have a bachelor's degree in, I don't know, something not in the field, I'll just say. Right? They just want you to have that degree because they're just looking for a certain aptitude.
Yeah. And that's a good point too. I mean, some of the HR requirements are just so outrageous. Like entry-level jobs that require 10 years of experience in a CISSP to start for, $50,000 a year pay. Is that why we're seeing this? Are there people like are you willing to take that risk? I guess if I don't know, if you find somebody who's really motivated and dedicated to doing the job, but then on the other hand, if there were two, cybersecurity professional positions open, and one of the requirements was a whatever. I keep going with CISSP, so I'm gonna go with that one. One of the requirements was CISSP. We both got in the job. Come to find out the other guy doesn't have it. Come to find out the other person did not have that CISSP. I'd feel a little cheated.
Yeah. And on the flip side of that,
the other person, they feel great because they're like, haha, I didn't get it. Chump.
If you have 10 years experience in a CISSP, stop taking entry-level $50,000 a year job.
Yeah, exactly.
You are worth more than that.
That is a big red flag for a, yeah.
Maybe they'll lower the requirements when people stop taking the peanuts.
Yeah, I will say something like about a degree or certification should definitely be, a fireable offense or whatever, because that's provable, right?
Yeah.
You can verify that someone was paid by a particular employer at a particular time. That is all that verifies.
Yeah.
It's like, I am fine if someone had worked at a place, so they put in a few years, and they were part of a team that implemented a new software suite, and they put I was critical in implementing. I'm fine with that. That's like resume polish. That is like,
Yeah.
that's how you sell yourself. You know, it's like I was lead on this project, even though you may not have been designated a lead. It may just been the person that everyone went to, which you're lead by. I was a field commission to a lead at that point. And so
That's just fluff. Yeah, that's
right. Like
Marketing.
You should you should be willing to polish your skills and sell them, especially if you are confident in what you did with those that time and did with those skills. But let's not get to the blatant dishonesty.
No.
There's no shortcuts.
Yeah. Even though they seem really easy and that you might be able to get away with them. But I've got thinking about, wonder if there's legal consequences that you're misrepresenting qualifications or experiences that you're claiming that you have.
I do know there is if you apply for a state or a federal job. But a big part of that is because all those things are paid for with tax dollars and they have to be accountable for that. But
yeah.
So if you're going to scam anybody, scam the little guys.
Scam private sector.
That's right. Little mom and pops, they can't afford to pay for attorneys, let alone background checks. Poof.
So all Ben's saying is tailor your resume to highlight your strengths and your accomplishments accurately. You know, that means that's going to show that you're a legitimate person, especially if you're working in the security field.
Yeah.
You don't want to distort your reputation right from the get-go. Because people find out and have ways of communicating if you go from company to company trying to do that.
So what about real life examples? Have any of you been involved where you've got this amazing resume, everything's great on paper, and then somebody shows up for the interview and it's just a flop, like they clearly...
Oh yeah, like I've seen that. I've quite a bit. It's obvious that they just hired somebody on Fiverr or something like that to fluff up their resume, and they had no real knowledge of what they did or anything, so they just made it sound as awesome as possible. And the person submitting it may not have read it, but I certainly read it. And then whenever you bring them in and you start asking them these things, they're like, I did what? Like, yeah. So yeah, I've had a few of those examples where it's just straight up lying. Those are awkward interviews too, and I'm not afraid to just be like, we're done. I'm just shutting it down now.
Kind of had an interesting experience. I've been on teams for panel interviews and things like that, and reviewed resumes and such. And I had one resume that was really good, and the interview went really well, but the person was not that good. And I've had another one where the resume seemed a little shady. They kind of glossed over a gap in employment and such. They interviewed pretty well, but they turned out to be amazing. And that's something that we were like, that's a weird gap in employment. It's not like they lied about, oh yeah, I worked all this time. They just left it off the resume. Here's my job and here's the next job. And if you didn't look at the dates, you wouldn't realize it. But that's one of those things where it's like, is that dishonesty? I would say, well, not necessarily, because it was on there. And just because we didn't address it, it's really on us, right?
Yeah.
So they just didn't... They put a gap in the resume just because it's like, instead of saying from, 2013 to 2015, I was unemployed. They just put the dates like 2013 into the job, 2015 started a new job at whatever.
Yeah. It's just like that. Yeah. And I'll say myself, I don't put my work history at Taco Bell and McDonald's and Walmart. I don't put that on my resume. I think I put my Walmart experience before I got my first IT job, and that's the last time that was ever on my resume. So
So what'd you do at Walmart? Cybersecurity.
Yeah.
I was 18 years old.
Ocular pat downs.
Yeah.
No, I could say like I have a gap of non-IT work in my resume or in my job history, and I've kind of got it from hiring managers both ways. Like one job, they said that they almost didn't hire me because I had just done the chronological job listing, so there was all of these non-IT jobs listed. So that could hurt. Or I don't list those jobs and I have this chronological gap. I've tried listing those jobs separately later on. It doesn't look great. Maybe it's time to rethink the whole hiring process with resumes. We're not. It's all fed into a system, anyways, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing too. Is like I view my resume. I look for my professional experience, and I'm professionally an IT person, right? So I don't like if I do have a job doing something that's non-IT related. I don't necessarily think I need to put that directly on the resume. I'm trying to sell my skills in the area that the hirer is looking for. I'm not trying to sell every little detail and skill that I have. That's for them to find out later.
All right. Well, it's confession time. Have you guys ever lied on your resume?
I personally have trouble. I have trouble lying anyway.
Yeah.
Of a factual person, it's tricky for me, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't lie or make something up on a resume. I've done polishing, like I described, to put anything on there that I just could not absolutely back up. I just couldn't do it.
I remember one time you were going for a job, and man, this was a long time ago, and you called me up and you're like, hey, I'm going for. I was like, oh, congrats, man. It's like, yeah. I'm putting this on my resume, and it was, I forgot what it was. It was some project that we worked together on, and you were like, you said, yeah, I'm gonna put that I'm like I was an integral part of the deployment of this, and I was like, okay. You're like, are you okay with that? And I was like, why? Yeah. Why are you asking me? Yes, you were an integral part. Like, you were very much like a key player there. And you're like, well, I just don't want to, because I know you were running the project. And I was like, I mean, I led meetings, but I was like, yes, absolutely. So yeah, yes, I can vouch for you. You are a very honest person. And yeah, I mean, there's always going to be some like, I don't think I've ever, I'd have to go through all my resumes, but I don't think I've ever lied in a resume, just because I don't want to be caught in a lie. Like, that is the worst feeling ever to me. But marketing yourself, I mean, that's part of it. So you can make yourself sound good on a resume, but just don't lie.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll even go as far as like, okay, so I know there was one job that I was applying for, and I was going for some certification, and I forgot what it was. And I'm like, I am so close, and I'm pretty sure once I get the interview, I'm going to have that certification. And I almost turned my resume in, and I was like, nope. And I rewrote it real quick. I was like, currently working on this certification, plan to have it, Q4 of, 2008 or something like that. I don't know. So I think that's okay too. I think that's, if I saw that resume come through my desk and I was like, oh, well, they're working on that actively. That's cool. They don't have it, but at least they were honest. They're like, I'm working on it. Yeah. I don't expect them to have it. I don't expect, now if it was a job requirement, if it was like, we have to have the CISSP, they said, I'm planning on getting my CISSP in, a year and a half. I'm like, well, we kind of need it now. So I don't know about that one. That one's a little bit of a risk, but no, if it was something that was, if there wasn't a requirement, they said they're currently working on it, heck yeah, put that on your resume as currently working on it.
And I think that shows your honesty and that, you're trying to improve your knowledge.
Yeah.
there's two sides to that, and they're both great. I was going to say I've not lied on my resume, but I can think back to maybe like a couple of things that were, just far-reaching. It's just you're trying to really polish it.
I did invent the internet.
So I got a lesson early on in this, because when I graduated, I was working with a consulting firm trying to get some contract work, and you know how they are. They're just trying to make their commission. So I guess I had mentioned that like I use Linux in passing. And so they sent me on an interview, and I sat down, and they started talking about things. It turns out it was basically a Unix senior administrator position, and the consulting firm had lied on my behalf. Which was pretty awkward, and I was just starting out, so I hadn't done a lot of interviews to begin with, and I didn't know that I could just like say I'm sorry and walk out. So I sat through that whole interview flop sweating the whole time.
Oh my god.
So from that point on, no lying on the resumes, no even flubbing a little bit. I'm pretty sure I can back up anything, or like I said, at least bluff my way through.
Did they ask you how to use grep?
He's not gonna grip his way out of this one.
Man, I can't imagine. I used it as a hobbyist. I can't imagine trying to say an administrator.
I think it's time to PS kill this interview. All right, fellas, let's go to Denny's. All right, well, that is going to be it for our episode. Thank you for joining us. And if anybody wants to fess up to any lies that they put on the resume, head over to oakbarrelsecurity.com or give us a call. I can never remember the number.
234-201-0707.
Thank you, Tony. From Oak Barrel Security and Security with Spirits, I'm Jason.
This has been
Jonathan.
And Tony.
See y'all next time.
Or will we? Fire them from a cannon into the sun.